I have done bricklaying for loving. I could
that's
build
right.
a wall.
That's right.
I think I could still build a wall. I look like I have workers' hands on the outside, but they're a little softer on the inside because of my day job.
It was actually, I read it many, many years ago when it first came out. And it was the first Dennis Johnson piece of writing I'd ever read. And it just happened to be like, I was getting out of college, I think at the time, and it came out and I read it and I was blown away. And then I devoured everything else he had written. And I just became a huge Dennis Johnson fan. And then fast forward to, and Joel also has a history with the book that precedes us making the film together. And then fast forward to, I had made Jockey and it had premiered here, and a couple of producers had the rights to the book and were trying to find a filmmaker to make the book into a movie, and they saw Jockey and felt like I might be a good fit. And I don't know that I would have had the courage to do it otherwise had they not asked, but it was just like, as soon as the idea came across, it just felt like the most exciting thing.
I don't really often get to read for pleasure. You know, I'm a slow reader. I read a lot for work, and so sometimes I equate reading now with like part of a job. And somebody had gifted me the novella at the end of a job, and I read it, you know, for pleasure, and was so taken with it. And you know, I'm also a filmmaker, and I was so taken with it that I made an inquiry about the rights to the book. And of course they were taken, and I was like, well, it was, you know, so be it. And then years later, when Clint contacted me, it felt like somebody had really, it felt like something special was in the air. I was like, how did somebody know that I was so taken with this story? And so I felt very lucky. And then I was very nervous about reading the screenplay, because I remember thinking, you know, any book or novella is a challenge to translate into a film. The script was so well, it was such an accomplished version of the book in the screenplay. And then, you know, and I watched Clint's film Jockey, and it's very rare often that sometimes you get a nice script and then you're not so sure about the way all the other elements, to be kind, you know, or you want to work with a great filmmaker and then you're not connected with the script. But this felt like everything really lined up, and I felt very privileged that they were asking me to do it. And I felt that by this stage in my life, I do know myself well enough of what aspects of me felt appropriate for this, and I felt like it was something that I could wear quite well. So it was cool that it happened.
After Joel came on, then we were like, it was like, okay, now let's find our Gladys. Mm-hmm. And that's such a difficult character to try and get right. And Joel and Felicity had known each other and wanted to work together for a while, and I've been a huge fan of hers forever. And so she just like, it was just one of those where she just felt so perfect for it that you're like, I hope she doesn't say no, because I don't know who we'll go to next.
His sensitivity to the way he spoke about the material, the way he approached things as a writer and as a filmmaker, that I had complete trust in him, and it was easy for me to share that information with her. And actors often like feel safe with each other, you know, who am I going to be working with, and is it going to be a good experience? And you don't have a crystal ball, but you can have an instinct for someone. So I definitely, you know, was blowing Clint's trumpet to her, if that's the right way of putting it, of saying how much faith I had in the process, and as a collaborator, because Clint and Greg, as writers, part of their power is not to assume complete control over something. Is that filmmaking is such a collaborative situation anyway, and if actors have thoughts about things, it's important to listen to them, but not listen to all of them, because we can have some pretty terrible ideas too.
What is your talent for, like anything with working with your hands, manual labor, any of that? Like, would you have any skills to offer as a real life person?
Yeah, you could be a bricklayer tomorrow. You'd be great.
I have done bricklaying for loving. I could
Oh, that's
build
right.
a wall.
Sorry,
I think I could still build a wall. I look like I have workers' hands on the outside, but they're a little softer on the inside because of my day job. I like doing films, I guess, where I get to learn skills and do things that are physical, because I think that as much as I obsess over the interior life of characters, the physical nature of work is so important. Some of my favorite actors are people who bring the character into their whole body rather than just their voice or their eyes. But I also have a whole history in my family of men that were workers. You know, before my father, his father was a train driver, and before that, a whole lineage of farmers, which my father was going to carry on, except that he got sort of railroaded at university. He was on his way to go and enroll in what was called sheep husbandry, and his friends were like, "Mick, we're going off to become lawyers, you know, and there's lots of money in it." He was like, "Okay." And my life may now be not sitting here, but being the son of a farmer, you know, inheriting a farm or something. It's interesting how generations, and that speaks to the film as well, about how a life lived could be one thing or another, and
how one decision like that can like ripple across generations now.
And you know, well, I feel like I'm of a generation where I got to take charge of my own future. You know, I didn't have to inherit something or presume to inherit something. And there's something really nice about this film that I responded to, in that, you know, this idea of the significance and insignificance of all of our lives. We will all be forgotten unless we're, you know, some criminal or a politician or a famous artist of some kind that's written into history. But we all contribute to the world, and we're all insignificant and will be forgotten to a degree, but we did contribute something, or we brought new people into the world that, you know, continue the human race. So I feel there's a real potency and simplicity to the film.
Does a movie of yours stick out as, when you were talking about like learning skills and stuff for jobs, that was the hardest, was one?
Warrior, for sure. Learn it. Presuming at the, you know, I used to have a fighting background as a kid, like just doing karate. But Warrior came around when I was in my mid-30s, and I had this sort of cynical point of view that I was a bit too old to learn all these new skills. And we were forced to prove ourselves wrong. And I really admired having to go through a really intense work experience like that and prove, you know, for the future also is never to doubt what you're capable of.